tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a la presentación de esta obra del doctor Dirk Heirbaut con la presencia de Agustín Parise, que es nuestro miembro de nuestro instituto, de la comisión directiva, director de la revista. Bueno, ahora yo lo voy a presentar. Así que, si les parece, ¿quién va a hablar primero? ¿Agustín, vos o el doctor?
Lo dejo al criterio de Dirk. Dirk, would you like to take the floor first, or should I? You had already indicated that. You're muted, Dirk.
Yeah, indeed. We had already agreed that you would speak first. So,
Okay,
but
great.
if, of course, you say I'm so exhausted now, you speak first. I'm willing to do this as you.
No, perfect. We follow the agreement we had. I was just double checking.
Entonces, buenas tardes a todos, buenas tardes a todos los que están presentes en esta presentación del libro, a los que se acercan al instituto por primera vez, a los que ya nos vienen siguiendo desde hace un tiempo. Bueno, esta obra del doctor Heirbaut va a ser presentada por Agustín Parise. A los que no conocen a Agustín Parise, les cuento que Agustín es argentino, que es doctor por la Universidad de Buenos Aires y por la Universidad de Maastricht de los Países Bajos, que es LLM, magíster en Derecho por la Louisiana State University de Estados Unidos, que es, como les dije hace un minuto, abogado por la Universidad de Buenos Aires, es profesor asociado en la Universidad de Maastricht, Países Bajos, es secretario general de la International Association of Legal Science, de la World Society of Mixed Jurisdiction Juries y jefe de redacción del Journal of Comparative Legal History. Fue investigador visitante en muchísimas universidades de Alemania, de Australia, de Inglaterra, entre otras, y dio clases en China, Estados Unidos, Argentina, Bélgica, Alemania y Francia. Es autor y editor de numerosas obras publicadas en Argentina, en Estados Unidos, en los Países Bajos, en Chile, en Brasil, Puerto Rico, en todo el mundo. Su línea de investigación son la historia comparada del derecho, la codificación, la circulación de ideas, el derecho a propiedad, la enseñanza del derecho, entre otras, siempre desde la perspectiva histórico-jurídica. Y una primicia es que Agustín Parise ha sido electo flamante presidente de la European Society for Comparative Legal History. Un nombramiento que nos honra muchísimo a nosotros por la relación estrecha que Agustín tiene con nuestro instituto, porque es el también flamante director de su revista, porque es miembro de la comisión directiva, y es un honor para nosotros que Agustín haya accedido a ese puesto, y obviamente lo felicitamos desde acá. Voy a presentar ahora a continuación al autor de la obra que vamos a comentar sobre la codificación, que es el doctor Dirk Heirbaut, que es catedrático de Historia del Derecho y Derecho Romano en la Universidad de Derecho y Criminología de la Universidad de Gante, Bélgica, Ghent. Es doctor en Derecho por su investigación pionera sobre el derecho feudal en el condado de Flandes entre el año 1000 y 1305. Ha ocupado destacados cargos en diversas instituciones de investigación, entre ellos el de profesor invitado en la Universidad de Uppsala, Grecia, en el Instituto Max Planck de Historia y Teorías Jurídicas de Frankfurt, en el Instituto Max Planck de Derecho Privado Comparado de Hamburgo y en la Universidad de Ámsterdam. Sus áreas de investigación abarcan una amplia gama de temas en el ámbito de la historia jurídica europea, especialmente la historia jurídica comparada de la codificación, la historia de las codificaciones de derecho privado y derecho consuetudinario feudal y medieval. Y actualmente dirige un equipo de investigación que trabaja principalmente en la historia jurídica belga moderna. Es miembro de la Real Academia Flamenca de Bélgica para las Ciencias y las Artes, de la Academia Europea, miembro del Consejo de Redacción del Legal History Review y Pro Memorie, y coeditor de las series Juris Scripta Historica y Studies in the History of Private Law. En 2014 recibió el premio Eike von Rebgow de la ciudad y la Universidad de Magdeburgo. Así que pueden tomar idea de la dimensión de los dos profesores que hoy van a llevar a cabo este evento. Así que, sin más, felicitar de vuelta a Agustín por ese nombramiento y ya les dejo el piso. Van a querer compartir un PowerPoint, así que te voy a permitir, a ver, espera, ¿cómo es este tema? Te voy a poner como co-anfitrión, nunca me acuerdo si te tengo que permitir o te pongo como co-anfitrión. Ojo que vas a tener que admitir a los que se estén sumando, ¿eh?
Sí, lo pones como anfitrión y después le pedís que te lo vuelva a devolver.
Ok, espera, un minutito. Agustín Parise, make host. Muy bien, adelante.
Muchas gracias Viviana por tus lindas palabras. Es siempre muy lindo estar en el Instituto de Investigaciones, esta vez sumándome de forma remota desde Río de Janeiro, donde mi avión fue demorado, reprogramado, y tengo un solo problema, y ese es, creo, quizás más, pero un solo problema es que el cargador de mi computadora no es compatible cuando se enchufa de este hotel. Yo estimo que tengo energía en la computadora para 1 hora, pero si se llega a desconectar, después me voy a sumar por el teléfono, pero sin el apoyo de la computadora. Bueno,
Yo espero también tener suficiente batería, porque yo también me estoy conectando desde un hotel en el centro de Buenos Aires con un adaptador que yo me olvidé de traer, así que espero que la tecnología esté de nuestro lado.
bueno.
Adelante.
Bueno, muchas gracias nuevamente por tus lindas palabras, Viviana. Buenas tardes y gracias por acompañarnos hoy a todos. Hablaré en inglés para entablar diálogo directo con el autor luego de mi presentación. Let me start by stating that codification occupies a place of preeminence in the realm of the law. Argentina, Belgium, China, and Puerto Rico, only to name a few jurisdictions, have engaged in private law codification experiences during the past decade. Dirk Heirbaut, mi amigo Dirk, one of the architects of the ongoing revitalization of comparative legal history, has engaged with and shaped the narrative by reconsidering this ubiquitous field of study in the book that gathers us today. Heirbaut there looks at the sources and failure of private law codifications since the end of the 18th century, with a focus on experiences in Belgium, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. Redefining Codification offers an enjoyable journey across time and space in 10 chapters. Let me walk you through the book and to share my thoughts. Chapter 1 ignites interest on the topic, helps to set expectations of readers, and presents limitations of the volume. The author explores different meanings for codification, including the unavoidable path opened by Jacques van der Linden, attending consolidation of the law, and by Raoul van Caneghem, attending true codes. Heirbaut, then justifying the choice of jurisdictions and fields of law, completes that introduction. He looks beyond the traditional civil code experience, yet, as mentioned by the author himself and by Jean-Louis Alperin in his recent work on global legal history, there is merit in bringing other experiences to the scholarly table, such as the efforts in criminal law that still call for more in-depth studies. Chapter 2 looks at a private law codification experience par excellence. France. The accounts on the civil, commercial, and civil procedure codes are clear and pedagogical, and extend beyond the well-known storyline of the origins, adoption, and immediate impact of those seminal texts. The author looks at how the codes continue living in France already for 2 centuries, hence offering a less-known account for non-Francophone readers. Readers are invited to reflect on a recurring theme throughout the book, the interplay of codification and democracy. The 3 French accounts presented by Heirbaut point readers to the presence of a strong executive and a weak legislature, and to, and I quote, the incompatibility of the French parliamentary system with codification, end quote. Chapter 3 takes readers to a laboratory for codification, The German experience offers a space to explore the recurring theme on the interplay of codification and democracy. Heirbaut dissects efforts at individual state and national levels, adding a layer of depth that is rarely presented to English language readers in such a clear manner. The laboratory is open to explore political and legal diversity, together with challenges from the extreme right and the extreme left. Readers are guided through the different territorial efforts and the path towards the adoption of national codes. The German excursion of Heirbaut benefits from references to game theory, noting that individual states, but also the Imperial Chancellor, the Imperial Office for Justice, professors, judges, and legislators were all players in the game towards the adoption of codes. Chapter 4 offers a micro-study of how a small nation engaged in monumental codification endeavors. Heirbaut ignites the Dutch account with a historical background that helps contextualize experiences. Civil, commercial, and civil procedure are presented side by side until the 20th century. Actors, drafts, and codes are all exhibited in that micro-study, with attention to some dogmas that needed to be contested, such as those that were triggered around the interaction between Jean Melchior Kemper and Pierre Thomas Nicolai. Heirbaut notes changes in the international context in the 20th century and the presence of new actors, such as Edward Maurits Myers. Codes require attention, and as Heirbaut states, I quote, "Just as the Dutch constantly need to work on their dikes against the attacking sea, they also have to defend their civil code against challenges." End quote. Chapter 5 illustrates how codification can be considered a paradigm that shifts. Dirk takes us home to Belgium, his country. The Belgian account on codification starts in 1831, and the author provides a historical background that helps contextualize the experiences. The course of the Civil Code proves that the French text survived and that as late as 2004, Belgium had preserved more articles of the original than French had done. This survival motivated a severe decodification process. The course of the Commercial Code proves once more that decodification finds a fertile ground in that area of law. The course of the Code of Civil Procedure took place within the needs of industrializing Belgium. A paradigmatic shift took place in Belgium in 2016, when Koen Haynes, Minister of Justice, made evident his efforts to emulate Napoleon and adopt new codes as part of a major reform program. As stated by Heirbaut, I quote, "Altogether, Haynes' ambitions completely broke with the past." End quote. Pragmatism prevailed in the Belgian codification experience, and readers can agree with Heirbaut that, and I quote, "Codification is not a beauty contest." End quote. Chapter 6 serves as a bridge between the 4 jurisdictional micro-studies and the elaboration of a framework to reconsider codification. Heirbaut notes that perceptions on the merits of codification depend on a large extent on timing, and that it is not possible to refer to an ideal code. Heirbaut points towards the use of comparative legal history as a tool to meet the sought-after redefinition of codification and the assessment of its success or failure. This tool, and I quote, "enables an alternative history. It helps us to answer the what-if question." End quote. Ultimately, and crucial for the chapters that follow, Such an exercise, and I quote, offers a realistic alternative scenario because it refers to events that actually happened, though in another jurisdiction. End quote. Chapter 7 out of 10, we're almost there. Chapter 7 showcases the toolbox that will be used to assess the success or failure of codification. Success is seen in the book from, and I quote, whether or not a draft becomes legislation that entered into force, end quote. He calls for the search of hidden variables that emerge from contradictions and that can help open the way for a kind of dialectic method. Heirbaut acknowledges that his toolbox is work in progress and that the disciplinary evolution of comparative legal history may eventually call for change. Future studies can play with this toolbox, use it as they see fit, and incorporate changes they might require when studying codification across time and space. Chapter 8 guides readers into a construction site, a building site, where Heirbaut helps build an archetype with the primary sources extracted from the previous chapters. A first part of the site is assigned to drafters of codes. There, readers encounter multiple questions that relate to building an archetype. Should codification be a joint or a solo endeavor? Who are the best drafters? Is diversity in the drafting body relevant? How should drafting instructions and methods be? And what about the working conditions of drafters? This scholastic method enables the author to explore the merits and weaknesses of each position, and ultimately assess codification. A second part of the site is assigned to politicians. There, Heirbaut delineates the gravitation of actors by stating that, and I quote, drafters can only do as much as the politicians allow them to do, end quote. The scholastic approach of Heirbaut raises further questions. Is political stability a necessity? How is a codification flame kept alive in the political arena? What is the interplay between codification and decodification? And what concessions are needed in the interplay between actors? A third and final part of the site is assigned to other stakeholders. Two main questions are raised in this site. What other groups in society have an interest in codification? And what is the role of jurists in a codification endeavor? Roles are different when looking at the three types of private law codes. It should be noted. Chapter 9. This chapter benefits from the toolbox and the construction site offered in the two previous chapters and explores how to implement a codification plan. Here, the scholastic approach continues prevailing, enabling Heirbaut and all the readers to reconsider some of the main steps that can lead to success or failure. Should codes be innovative or conservative? Should drafters aim to scholarly perfection? Should codification happen in one stage or in multiple stages? And what use should be made of existing models, both foreign and domestic? While dealing with these questions, the author challenges some common understandings. Heirbaut ultimately recommends readers to forget excitement. Boring drafts have more chances of success. The final chapter, chapter 10, concludes the comparative legal historical journey. Heirbaut alerts that not all questions raised are relevant when exploring the life and fate of a code, and that hidden elements may help assess failure or success. Consensus on a code can be reached when challenging the previous ideal that codes should be original, innovative, comprehensive, coherent, consistent, and accessible text regulating an area of the law for the whole nation. Indeed, an earlier conception of codes pursued an utopian goal that was succeeded by a conception that allowed the perception of the law in action. In that final chapter, and after his path across time and space, Heirbaut offers a definition of code that is circumscribed to the time and space he studied. A code is, and I quote, according to Heirbaut and this work of Heirbaut, legislation covering a major part of the law which contains at least some modification and imposes a new framework for further development, thereby making the law more ordered for professionals. End quote. He then offers a dissectomy of the building blocks of his definition that enables him to visualize codes as part of a solar system, with democracy and political approval in the center space. The clearly structured contents of the book and the thorough index of persons helps readers to navigate across time and space. By means of these tools, readers can find a catalog of main actors and events in these codification endeavors. The beautiful and attractive cover art of the book ignites in readers the desire for more illustrations within the book. For example, future editions of the book could include portraits of the main actors, images of the cover pages of seminal books, and maps to help identify spaces. The legal literature, I believe, should start to outreach more to visual supports that enrich the content and facilitate the reading. The narrative on codification requires more studies as the one provided by Heirbaut. There is a need to revisit prior understandings and to continue challenging uncontested dogmas. There is a need to further reflect. Heirbaut's work can be read side by side to that of other comparative legal historic champions, such as, for example, Alejandro Guzmán Brito. He wrote his study on Latin America, and the 4 jurisdictions from Europe could benefit from being contrasted with experiences in Latin America. Synergy and broader context can be attained by this curiosity, and Heirbaut has paved an exploration path. Redefining Codification offers a place to reflect on codification. Heirbaut raises numerous recurring questions that needed to be addressed in a monograph. Those questions invite readers to redefine codes, but above all, invite readers to reconsider codes, reconsider codification and its failure or success. Ultimately, Redefining Codification offers a view of codification and the way it interacts with the texture of society. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Agustín. ¿Me devolvés el comando?
Sí, voy a tratar de hacer eso.
A ver,
Segundo.
yo no puedo hacer nada todavía.
Sí, Viviana, te voy a hacer make host. Ahí está.
Muy bien. So, thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias, Agustín, por esta magnífica presentación. No nos sorprende para nada. And right now, Dr. Heirbaut, the floor is yours. We can't listen to you.
Wait, I need to share my
Sure,
presentation first.
I will make you host right now.
Okay.
And can I recover the host? Do you
Yeah.
know how? Oh, great.
But I think I need then to share my presentation and continue. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm making you host. So
yeah.
you go down where you see share screen and you are.
Yeah, share. Yes, but wait. I first need to put this on because I have 3 to 4 screens here. So give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah, it should be this one. Yeah, okay.
Great.
can I start?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. First of all, many thanks to you, Viviana, for the introduction, and also to Agustín for a wonderful presentation of my book. Now, I must say that the book has been published earlier this year, but it actually, what happened was that, and I am now a bit in a problem here with, I'm sharing the screen, but I don't get to the next slide. Wait a moment. So there is something. Wait, yes. Okay, I see now. Okay, I get it now. It's the controls were at another side. So my whole voyage towards all this already started in 1989, so many years ago, when I had to serve a year in the Belgian army. But I was quite lucky because the army sent me to the Army Museum, so not to a military unit. And when I entered the museum, the first thing I saw was a room about Napoleon. And what I saw was that the most important place was not for something military, but for his civil codes. That was truly interesting. And from that I took, yes, indeed, because the one battle we all know of Napoleon is Waterloo, the battle he lost. What we all do remember, however, is his civil code. And don't forget, in 1989, the civil code of Belgium was still Napoleon's civil code. So it was still our law in Belgium. And what is interesting is, I wanted then to do something more about codification, but I could not do that as a legal history PhD student in the 1990s in Belgium, because the idea was you only study what happened before the French Revolution. So you don't study the 19th and the 20th century, you could not do that. But now there is something interesting that many people will not know. Belgium means Low Countries. Netherlands, the neighboring countries, actually has the same name. It also means Low Countries. So Belgium means Netherlands, and Netherlands means Belgium. That shows that our two countries, Belgium and the Netherlands, are quite linked. And something interesting in 1989 was that we Belgians had Napoleon's code, so a French civil code, whereas the Dutch had a civil code which had been written by a Belgian. So the Belgians had a French civil code and the Dutch had a Belgian civil code. A bit strange, but that was still the case in 1989. In 1992, the Dutch had their new civil code. And what they did was they immediately started to study it. Actually, at the university where Agustín is now working, which is a very good university and has a great legal history department, they immediately started to study that. So already 2 years later, there was a book on its history. And then I was thinking, if the Dutch can study recent legal history, I can also do this. So I decided to also look into this. Now, there was a problem for me, that is that Belgium as a codifying state is a failure. We are not very good at making new codes in Belgium. To give you an example of that, I was born in 1966. And at that time still, according to the official text of our Code of Criminal Procedure, which is still today the French Code, well, I was born in France as a Frenchman under an emperor. I was not born as a Belgian in Belgium under a king. No, I was still a French citizen, because at the time we even hadn't amended the text yet to show that we were already, for more than 150 years, independent. So in other countries, like for example in Argentina, the codes are a symbol of the nation. They show that you as a nation can make law. It's like you have a national anthem, you have a national flag, so you have national codes. They're symbols of the nation. In Belgium, they are not. In Belgium, they actually symbolized our submission to France. And this means that if, as a Belgian, you look into codification, I was already looking at Belgium and the Netherlands, but you have to study France because our history is also so much linked up with France. Now, France was very important for codification under Napoleon, but the French still think today that everyone in the rest of the world is looking towards them. You in Argentina, when you were making your civil and commercial code, the French think, well, of course they were looking at us in France. I don't think so, but still. So they still have the illusion that they are the great codifying nation, whereas actually, if you look at it, they failed because France has been unable to make a new civil code. You in Argentina could do it, but the French can't.
Dr. Heirbaut, you know, this is a free Zoom, so we have only 5 minutes left. But
we have only 5 minutes left.
No,
okay.
no, but it's okay. It's okay. What we are going to do, we are going to get out of this Zoom and then re-enter with the same link so as to give you time to finish your presentation.
Okay.
We are going to stop right now, get out of the Zoom, and then re-enter with the same link. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. So we stop. Okay. Then.
I would just like to add, Viviana, I would just like to add to clarify to Dirk, we do it always, Dirk. It's not because you or me are running late. When we reach 40 minutes, wherever we are, we stop and we start again. So it happens always. You continue with your plan as planned. It's just a technical hiccup of the free version.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Okay, so we get out of it all now and then we log in to, again, same link.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a minute. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll do that. Wat is dat hier? Zoom.
Viviana.
Bueno, continuamos con la segunda parte de la presentación de esta obra del Dr. Heirbaut. Dr. Heirbaut, go ahead, the floor is yours. I'm going to make you host again so as you can share your presentation. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. I just need to, yes, and share this now. Yes, share. You all see, sorry, my apologies. You all see my screen again, I hope?
Yeah.
Okay, then I continue. So France also failed to, as a state, so they were good under Napoleon, but not so much thereafter. And my question then was, why do codification efforts fail? And I first looked at what the French themselves said about this, and their answer was very simple. They said we were good under Napoleon, a general, and we were also good for civil procedure, at least under de Gaulle, another general. So they said for a codification, you need a general. That's, of course, nonsense, because we all know other countries can do it without generals. So what I said was, I need more material. I need more texts. And what I said was, let's look at Germany, because there were 40 Germanys in the 19th century, and there were also 2 Germanys in the 20th century. So I looked at Germany also, in addition to Belgium, France, and the Netherlands. But then I had a problem because I said, I want to look at both civil codes, at civil codes, commercial codes, and civil procedure codes, because people always assume that civil codes can stand for the rest. But is that really true? So I wanted also to look at all these things. And then for Germany, I had a problem because people do not realize it. But in 19th century Germany, more than 10,000 books were published on civil procedure. That's quite a lot. So that took me some time. I didn't read all those books, don't get me wrong, but still I needed lots of time for civil procedure in Germany. Now, this idea has actually already been brought forward by Agustín. He already explained all this, how I've been using comparative legal history as an alternative legal history. So I will not be going into the details of that. I will just point out that to me, two regions were extremely interesting because they show a bit of this alternative history. One interesting region is the Rhineland of Germany during the 19th century. So the Rhineland is what you have at the left bank of the Rhine, the side towards Belgium and the Netherlands, because they had French law in Germany in the 19th century. So it's very interesting for a study. And on the other hand, you have the exact opposite in the 20th century in Alsace-Lorraine. Alsace-Lorraine had German law because the Germans had conquered it in 1870, but the French got it back in 1919. But for some aspects, Alsace-Lorraine was allowed to keep the German law. So people are not always aware of it, but until 1976, France, for example, had two codes of civil procedure, the French one and the German one. So that makes those two places very interesting because they show a different version of their own country. Now, I had all my material, but then you need, of course, to bring it all together. And I immediately became frustrated because what people do is they study one country and then they say, oh, it's like that everywhere else. To give you an example, in the 1880s in Belgium, one man, and you can see him there, François Laurent, wrote a new civil code for Belgium, and it failed. We Belgians took from that the lesson, if one person writes a code, it will fail. The Dutch had something else. They had a commission trying to write a new code at the same time, and the commission failed. So the Dutch said, the universal rule, if more than one person tries it, it will fail. So we had as a universal rule, one person will fail. The Dutch had as a universal rule, more than one person will fail. Now, if both one person and more than one person fail, you cannot have a code, but we have codes. So I was frustrated, but then I saw that actually this frustration is actually something helpful, because if we have contradictions in national historiographies, then it means that we've been looking at it the wrong way, that there is something else. It's not about the number of drafters. It's actually about their willingness to take other opinions into account, the organization of their work, the management of their work. That is what counts. And what I realized was that these contradictions in national historiographies, that they can help us to find what is in statistics called hidden variables. And you all know that when more ice cream is being sold, there is more crime. But it's not because of the ice cream that people become criminals. No, there is a hidden factor at work. When it's warmer, you will, of course, like more ice cream, but there will also be more crime. So it's the warmth that is the real thing. But how do you know that you have to look for a hidden factor because it's hidden? Well, this is one of the ways that you can know that you have to look for a hidden factor. I had a second element that was important. Well, how do I organize this? I could do it chronologically, or I could do it by topic. If you do it chronologically, then you write a chronicle and you don't have an overarching view. If you do it by topic, then every time you have something, you need to explain it. For example, if I'm going to talk about Portalis, then I have to explain who Portalis is. So then you have to interrupt your study all the time. Therefore, I decided first to have country chapters in which I explained everything chronologically, and then to have an analysis by topic, referring my reader then to what the reader should already know due to the country chapters. I had yet another problem, and that was actually a fundamental problem. We all tell our PhD students, if they want to study something, first they need to define the concept. What are you working on? You need to make that clear. Well, the problem was I couldn't find any good definition of codification, because all these codifications have defects. To give you an example, one of the main elements of many codifications is that the codification should be understandable. It should be accessible. ordinary people should be able to understand it. And that's why, for example, in France in 1804, they had pocket editions like this one of mine. It's an original from 1804, so that ordinary people could just pick up the code and read and understand it. But let's be honest about it, that's not true. I give you there the article of your own Argentinian Civil and Commercial Code, and an ordinary person cannot read that and understand everything, because from the start it's there, the applicable laws, the national constitutions, the human rights treaties to which Argentina is part, and then there is a reference to, well, yes, the usages, practices, and customs. Are ordinary people all going to know this? No. So the definitions are not right. But then what do you have to do? Well, I reread Jacques van der Linden's work about the concept of code in Western Europe. It's a book from 1967, but it has a great approach. What Jacques said was, let's first study all the codes that are called codes and then make a definition based on that. So start from the ground up. It's actually what has been called in a book from the same year, 1967, by Americans, grounded theory. Jacques van der Linden used grounded theory, working bottom up, but he did not use the word grounded theory, but still, it is grounded theory. And there is a difference. So I used his approach, but in a different way, because he was looking for the ideal of a code. I've been looking at the reality of a code. So that is a difference in our approach. And what I noticed was that actually people may disagree on definitions, but people all agree on what is a true code. For example, people will say the 1807 French commercial code is a true code. People will, however, say that the French 2000 commercial code is not a true code, it is a mere consolidation. So people agree on what are codes in reality, and I use that to go back through my manuscript to use the approach of van der Linden. Now, talking about the book, there are some problems with the published book, and Agustín and I talked about this. First of all, my goal was not to make a new definition of codification. My goal was to find out, why do codification efforts fail? Because so many people try, and if it fails, it's wasted time of everyone. But my problem was I had a title expressing all that. I sent my manuscript and my title to the publisher, and the publisher, after peer review, said, yes, it's good, we're going to publish it, but we don't like your title. Can you suggest this several other titles? Because with this title that you want, the book will not sell. So I gave them a list of titles, and actually the last one, I said, I don't want to have that title because it's too arrogant. Of course, that was a title. They said, yes, that title is ideal. That's Redefining Codification. Agustín said to me last week when we were meeting in Hungary, actually reconsidering codification would have been good. And I told him, look, Agustín, Reinhard Zimmermann, the great German legal historian, made exactly the same remark as you have just done. So it's right. So that is one of the problems. There is another one. The title gives the impression, because it's the subtitle then is A Comparative History of Civil, Commercial, and Procedural Codes. It gives the impression as if I study everything in the whole world, but that's not true. I've only looked at 3 branches of law, and Agustín has already indicated, yes, it would be interesting to look at this for criminal law, for example, and I completely agree. And I only look at 4 countries, and Agustín rightly has said, well, yes, but there's also Latin America, which has a very rich tradition. You have one in Argentina, but I hope you'll forgive me for being more a fan of Andrés Bello. But there's a rich history outside these 4 countries in Europe, and there's a rich history outside Europe, and we cannot limit ourselves to that. So the title gives a bit of a wrong impression, and Agustín rightly once again said, well, the way to use this book is not by saying he has found that for those 4 countries, it will be the same in my country. No, the right thing would be, if you study another country, to use this as a source of inspiration. Okay, this is what he found in his 4 countries. But what will it be in mine? It can be the same, it can be something different. So I wanted to stimulate research, not to preach the gospel for the rest of the world. And then there's one last slide, which I will be ending. And that is, I did not realize when writing a book how important the cover illustration is. Because generally, we work as jurists with texts. So you write the whole manuscript, and then at the end, your publisher asks you, oh yes, do you not have a nice picture for the cover? And I was thinking, oh great, I hate Napoleon. So I first wanted to have on the cover that picture you can see there in the middle of Napoleon, who has just given up his throne after he has been beaten by the Allies. And my friends immediately said to me, no, don't do that. The book will not sell. But I was thinking, yes, but the greatest pictures are about Napoleon, and I hate Napoleon. So then I thought, okay, I'd take another picture of Napoleon, a great one, but I tell the publisher, look, you have to cut Napoleon out so that people cannot see him. And so I really sent a cutout of the picture to the publisher, and I must say they run away with it. With as a result, I now have a great cover. But the strange thing is that everyone says to me, oh, the cover is great. And then I'm thinking, yes, but will you also like the content of the book? Because generally they tell you, don't judge the book by its cover. Well, in this case, judge the book by its cover. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you listen to me? Can you listen to me?
And I stop the sharing. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Could you please give me again the host?
And now you have to explain to that hulpmiddelen voor hosts, documenten delen. How do I do that? Because my university forbids us to work with Zoom, so
okay.
I haven't been using it in ages.
Agustín, ¿vos sabés cómo
Yes, the best would be, Dirk, if you go to participants and you open participants.
Yeah, I do
there
that.
You will see the list of everyone. You go to Viviana, and you go to the right side. There are three dots, the ellipsis.
Yeah. I've done that.
And then, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Agustín and Dirk, for this. You can listen to me? Okay. Thank you very much for this excellent presentation. Agustín's presentation and your book, Dirk, make us think that comparative legal history is very useful for the present and not only for the past, right? And I also think that it's been very useful for us to listen to your presentation, Dirk, regarding the kitchen of the book. That is very, very important for all of us. I see there is a question there. So, Mariano, could you please introduce yourself in English or in Spanish and make your question?
Yes. Thank you, Viviana. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, I'm Mariano Viteta. I am an assistant professor at the School of Law at Australian University in Buenos Aires, and Agustín Parise is my PhD supervisor. So, Professor Heirbaut, thank you very much for your presentation. I really loved it. And what I was thinking at the beginning of your presentation was, I would love to read a book on failed attempts at codification. And this is precisely what the publishing house was advising you against, I think. So I would really like to know what was the other title that they made you drop that you were thinking of, and other possibilities, because I think the idea of a book on failed attempts at codification is really catchy. Thank you.
Well, yeah, indeed. So my first title was, and you will recognize it, what it was based on, Why Draft Codes Fail. That was actually my first title. And but they didn't get the link to the book by the economists. That was one thing. And they said, yes, but it has too much failure in it. So no one wants to read about failure, but I said, I said the whole goal of the book is actually that I do not look only at successes, because if you only look at successes, you have a selection bias. And then it may be that there is an element that is in common to all your successes, but it's also common to all your failures. So you don't explain it that way. It could be a good approach if you were a politician. Let's say, then you can say, I only look at best practices. But for an academic analysis, you can't do that. So that was why I wanted to have failure in the title. But yeah, the publisher didn't like it. And yeah, I do understand that publishers want to sell books. And in the end, I have to admit, I don't like the title, but it does indeed get the attention. So they have more experience with that. And at one moment, you need to trust them when they say, look, if you're going to do that, people will not buy it, you will not be read. And as an author, you want to be read.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you very much for your answer. I guess we can still go on with the English. Ahí está, Agustín.
Muchas gracias. I will take the advantage, and like Dirk said, last week we met in Hungary. It was a very nice gathering, and I was able in the gala dinner to share one-to-one with Dirk. So I asked him many questions, but there are a few I didn't ask. And one of them is that we did speak about was, for those of you that will read the book, there's also available in e-format. So that's also good, it's handy. You can find it also in electronic version. It's easier to ship it, let's say that, because books in some parts of the world is more difficult to ship the books, but the ebook goes very easy. When you read the book, or at least when I read it, the 4 chapters that speak about the jurisdictions could be read as a novella, as a book on the beach, on the snow, wherever you're in the summer or in the winter, depending on which part of the world. But they're easy. They're really nice reads. They read very easy. And what I found remarkable is that the 4 of them have the same depth, the same level of detail, the same readability. And I wanted to look at the kitchen, to what Viviana was speaking about. I want to see the pots boiling the food, cooking the food. How did you do, Dirk, to bring it all together in that sense? So I would like to see from your expertise, how was the process? You wrote the chapters I imagine, separately, but at some point you read them in continuity. Did you have a preconceived plan, or you started to tell us an account? So how did the magic happen? If you could tell us a little bit, how did it come together in such a nice way? That is one of the biggest challenges when we do comparative legal history, that we cross time and space so much.
Well, I must say that I have been working on this for a very long time. So I originally started correcting material on codification around the year 2000 already. And my problem was I've been collecting material for many years, but I never got the time to write about it. So I only got time to write about it when, thanks to circumstances, I got a special research chair for 3 years. But it meant that by the time I had the time to write on it, I had been thinking about this for more than 20 years. So that, of course, helped quite a lot. And I also have to admit, it did not always go easy, but that there were other reasons, as you well know. But generally, I also wanted to have every chapter to have a bit more or less the same length. Of course, keeping in mind that Germany is a lot more than any other country ever will have, because there's too many German legal history professors and they all write too much. But even that taking into account, I have to admit that the chapter on Belgium, when I looked at it, it was too much. So my chapter on Belgium, there I had to say, sorry, I cannot have more on Belgium than on Germany. So then it was kill your darlings. So I had to say for Belgium, which I know, of course, the best, but there are certain things. Okay, take, for example, François Laurent, who was also well known in Latin America, given his problems with the church. I wrote a lot about him, but I said, well, does my reader need all that? And I removed most of what I wrote on him from that. So there was also some effort in standardizing the chapters, but I have to admit that was most of all for Belgium. And the strange thing is that the chapter I myself like the least is the one I know the most about, the one on Belgium. But that's, yeah, I don't know how readers will see that, of course. That's also something that I noticed, because what I did was I had my PhD students read my chapters to comment on it. So if they were saying, look, professor, that's great, but we don't understand it, then I was thinking, well, yes, then no reader will understand it if my PhD students, who are all very smart, don't understand it. So I got constant feedback during the writing process. And also, I must say, I had, for every chapter, I had a specialist read the chapter, or sometimes a subchapter. So, for example, for civil procedure in Germany, well, then I had a specialist read that chapter and tell me, look, are there things missing? Are there things you think I should say? Are there things you don't understand as a specialist even? So I must say I had quite a lot of help from my friends. And that is one of the things that I mentioned in the book. It takes a village. I write at the start of the author preface, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community of academic friends to write the book, because you don't write it alone. You have many friends helping you. And I've had the luck of many friends helping me.
It's true. It's true. Any other questions or commentaries? Okay. So let me tell you, Dr. Heirbaut, that we are recording this presentation, and we are going to load it in our YouTube channel. So you don't see maybe many people present right now, because this is 3 p.m. in Argentina. People are working, and generally our meetings are on Thursdays and not Tuesdays. So many people have their schedules for Thursdays and not for Tuesdays. But anyway, you will see your presentation in our YouTube channel. We have more or almost 200 videos there. So any person can listen and see you anytime. And this YouTube channel is our big treasure, right? Because I believe it is one of the few legal history channels, I can say, all over the world. So any person will be able to see the presentation. So thank you again. Thank you for accepting.
Viviana, may I add something that sure. Dirk won't say, because Dirk is very humble. And Dirk is also very much into communication and dissemination of knowledge. He has established in his chair in Ghent a newsletter already for more than a decade that is a pioneer not only in the Low Countries at large, but in the entire world, I would say, where those that are subscribed to the newsletter receive tailor-made and very top quality updates. So I'm sure Dirk sympathizes with this idea of dissemination.
Okay, and could you please share the link to the blog with us?
But what actually happens is that we send out an email every month with the messages, and we've been doing that for about 25 years by now. So I think next year or the year thereafter will be our 25 years. So, and it's in Dutch, but it's read by more than 400 people.
Okay.
Because there are also, for example, some people in Germany who know Dutch. There's maybe someone in England who knows Dutch. There's someone in Hungary who knows Dutch. So, but we do it in Dutch because at the time I wanted to have this most of all for the PhD students.
Okay, I see. Okay, and let me tell you, Dr. Heirbaut, that in your honor, I have this background here. You see, you know what it is?
A central station of Antwerp.
And that's right, that's right. Okay, entonces, gracias. Thank you, Agustín, for your wonderful presentation. We are used to it, always. And muchísimas gracias a todos los que pudieron asistir en forma presencial. Thank you, Dr. Heirbaut, and I'm going to leave you these last minutes to you and Agustín to say goodbye.
I will only say goodbye and give the floor to Dirk. Thank you very much, Dirk.
Well, I will also now say goodbye, but not before thanking you all for the attention you've given me. And also, it was a great joy for me to speak to friends from Latin America. And what I hope is that my book will stimulate not just European scholars, but also our friends in Latin America.
Surely it will. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Muchas gracias. Nos vemos el jueves de la semana que viene en otra presentación de un libro. Muchísimas gracias. Chao.